I have a big pile of editing that I should be doing, but I would rather knit, so we're going to do that instead. Hexipuffs have been happening on Knitting YouTube, Retro Claude has been making them, Engineering Knits has been making them, so now I'm making them. They come from a pattern called the Beekeeper's Quilt. There's a link to the pattern in the description, go check it out. Essentially, you knit a bajillion of these tiny little hexagons, fill them with polyfill or waste yarn, and then sew them together into a large quilt. It's a good pattern for scraps and leftover yarn from other projects. So I've been watching Retro Claude make hers, and she hit a point where she was using a slightly thicker yarn and got a different gauge, and she broke out a spreadsheet to figure out what the increases should look like. And then I was watching Engineering Knits kind of muddle through a few different ways to make them on her knitting machine. And I thought to myself, like, there's gotta be a better way. And of course there is a better way, but I'm gonna have to build it. So it should come as no surprise that I'm making a pattern generator to knit hexipuffs on any kind of knitting machine with any kind of yarn at any size, so that you can make these without breaking out a spreadsheet. This is gonna be a single bed pattern so that you can make them on your LK150. Let me know if y'all want a double bed pattern. It shouldn't be too much extra effort to build. All right, let's do some geometry. Hexagon is a 6-sided shape. And we want these to be regular hexagons, so every side is going to be the same length. And the way we're going to knit these is from the middle out with short rows. And I will show you how to do this on the machine, but let me explain it in Sharpie on paper first. So we're going to cast on the number of stitches for the width, which is this distance here. We're going to short row in until we get to the side length, which is this distance here. And then we're going to short row back out to the distance of the width, and then at that point we'll be on the other side. And then we short row in again, and then out one more time. And then these will be live stitches that get grafted in the middle at the end. So this here is this edge, and this here is the top edge, and the center part is going to be the front, and then this part up here and down here is the back. So what measurements do we need? According to the original pattern, this distance here is 3 inches, the distance from the widest part of the hexagon. But we're going to call that X because we're going to leave that configurable in the pattern. If you want to make a really big quilt or a really tiny quilt, you can change the size of the hexagons. Okay, ignore my drawing skills because they are atrocious, but if we break this down into triangles, we know that these lengths are all the same, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 triangles, and these angles in the center need to add up to 360, so 360 divided by 6. Hey Google, 360 divided by 6.
360 divided by 6 is 60.
So these are all 60 degrees. And because this is a triangle, all of the angles of the triangle need to add up to 180? Hey Google, sum of the angles of a triangle.
The sum of the 3 angles of any triangle is equal to 180 degrees.
180. So this.
To find out more, look for the link in
Shut
your
up.
Google Home or Google Assistant app.
The sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. So that means that these angles are also 60 degrees. That means this is an equilateral triangle, so that we know if the length of this side is, say, y, this is going to be y, and this is going to be y. We know that the width of this hexagon is going to be x. So we know that this is y, and this is y, so x is equal to 2y. So that makes things a little bit easier. And if we go back to the original look at how we're going to knit this, the distances we need are this distance here, and then we need to know this distance here so that we can figure out the cadence of the short rows. So on this image, we have this distance here. Now we need this distance here. And the way we can figure that out is with triangle math. So we know that this is 60 degrees. And we know that that's a right angle because we have drawn it as a right angle. So this makes this a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And if we know that this side is y, we just need to get this side. And I could derive this from scratch here on this paper in this video, but I know that there are a lot of existing rules about how these triangles behave, so I'm just going to look it up. So for a 90, that's 60, and that's 30. For a 30, 60, 90 triangle, this is going to be, let's not call it X, let's call the side Z. And this is going to be 2Z, and this is why I put lines through my Z's, because my 2's look like Z's. And this is going to be Z square root of 3. And I assume that that is derived from the Pythagorean theorem and various other bits of geometry at some point. But we're just going to work with it. So we know that 2Z is equal to Y. So that we know that this side, which is this distance here that we need, is going to be Y over 2 times the square root of 3. And that's all the math we need to knit one of these. Brings me back to high school. Okay, so back to the original drawing. If we know that this distance is going to be X, then we know that this is X over 2. And this distance is going to be, right, so X is equal to 2Y. So Y is equal to X over 2. So then this Y over 2 square root of 3 turns into X over 4 times the square root of 3. Okay, so that's all we need to make this hexagon thing. I'm going to take all of this math and turn it into code on my website, and then we are going to knit some prototypes and see how it goes and make sure it makes sense. It might make sense to do an even cadence of short rows here. It might make sense to like knit a few extra rows in the middle so the whole thing makes sense, because like you're gonna have an extra row of plain down here, and then you're gonna wind up with an extra row when you graft it in the middle anyway. But I'm going to see how the math falls out. But the idea is to make this generic enough so that you can do this if you're doing a plain stockinette stitch, but also you can do it if you're doing something with color work or with some kind of texture pattern, or like, I think this would be interesting with the bubble stitch, which involves tuck stitches, and I might make one of those. The way that this pattern works is you cast on X number of stitches, you short row until you get to X over 2 stitches in the middle, and then you short row out, and then you short row in, and then short row out, and then it comes off the machine and you graft it in the middle. All right, let us write some code.
It's been a year since I last worked on this project. I did all of the math, I converted it all to code, and then I didn't finish it because it wasn't perfect. I think part of me was hoping that out of this exercise I'd get some perfect generic abstraction for short rows, but that's just not going to happen. So I went back a few weeks ago and looked at the code and made some prototypes, and it's fine. It's fine. I don't know what I was disappointed about, because I don't actually need a generic abstraction for short rows. Not in this way. Like, nobody makes sock heels like this. And the way that you do sock heels is really easy to calculate, so there's no reason to like build something super generic for this. I did find one bug, and I fixed it. So now I'm okay releasing this. So let me walk you through how to make one of these hexagons, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we're going to do with all of these hexagons.
So we're casting onto waste yarn and then immediately jumping into the short rows. Bring one needle into hold, knit one row. Bring another needle into hold, knit one row. And here's the tricky part, knit 2 rows. At this gauge and this size, there are extra rows between the short rows. Then hold again, knit, wrap, hold, knit, wrap, knit 2 rows. And of course, move the weights up. It continues this way all the way in, and the pattern will tell you how far, and then the same way back out.
We do this twice, it's like 2 sock heels in a row. And then it comes off on waist yarn. While I was swatching my hexagons, I also swatched some tuck stitch pattern stuff, because the way that I have drafted this pattern, you don't have to make the little tiny hexagons for your quilt. You can make hexagons of any size and use them for whatever you want. I'm going to use this swatch to get a gauge and then make a pillow out of this. Let me show you how that's done. I have my tuck stitch pattern loaded up in AYAB, and we're doing the same short row in, short row out thing. And I have a bajillion claw weights because the pocket starts to form immediately. I have finished my pillow, and it has this stripe on the back because I forgot to hit the tuck buttons, but that's going to be the back, so it doesn't matter as much. And yes, it looks a little wonky, but that's because it hasn't been blocked yet, and this will slightly change size and shape once it is. And I realized that I don't actually have 3 matching hexagons to go together, Here we go. These are 3 that I knit, but these are slight variations as I was fixing bugs in the pattern. So I'm going to go through now and knit 3 in a chain and put them together and show you how you would actually assemble this into a quilt if you were making the beekeeper's quilt. So let's do that. And then everything goes in the wash and I will report back tomorrow. It is cool. At this gauge, there are no extra rows between the short rows. So everything is out of the wash. Here is my pillow. Here's the front side. The back side has that flat spot. This did not turn out quite the way that I expected it to because it got stuck against the edge of the dryer and the acrylic kind of killed itself. I think that's the right term. But it didn't like contract the way I expected it to, but it's still a decent pillow. And then we have our hexipuffs. Look at that. Let me get closer. And this is how they'd be connected in the final quilty thing. These also didn't turn out quite the way that I expected them to. I believe I overstuffed them a little bit. And because they're stuffed, they wind up a little smaller than you'd expect them to be. Like when this hexagon is flat, it's the size that I expect it to be. Once it's stuffed, it winds up a little smaller dimension-wise because it gets pulled out. So I've added a bit of, I want to call it positive ease, but it's not quite the right term, but it's close enough to the pattern so that you'll wind up with a hexagon that's the right size once it's stuffed. And this is how they're assembled, 3 together at a corner. So yeah, the pattern is up on my website if you want to go check it out. It's not perfect, but it's good enough that you can create something with it. And maybe someday I will go back and build my perfect abstraction for short rows, but that day is not today. So this is not the end of the hexagon project for me. I've mentioned a couple times that I have a big scrap yarn project coming up, and this is it. I have a great quantity of yarn that I'm trying to use all of it up before I buy more yarn. And then I've been holding onto my scrap yarn for the past almost year. And this is it in a bin, all chopped up. This is what I've been using to stuff the hexipuffs. So the plan is to work on this in bits and pieces throughout the rest of the year to get my stash down and my waste yarn used up. But I'm going to be documenting that for channel members. And I think I'm going to try to live stream some of this because it's something I'd like to figure out. And like the hexagons are just enough like mechanical stuff and not enough and not really much thinking that it might be doable. So if you're interested in memberships, go check that out. I'd like to say thank you to channel members who make videos like this possible. If you'd like to become a channel member, all channel members get early access to new videos, and channel members at the mid-tier and up get access to members only videos. And while I say that I'm not going to buy any more yarn until I've used up what I already have, I have already broken that for a secret project that's coming up in the next couple months. If you want to go see the unboxing of that yarn and me talk about it a bit, there's a video on that. I have signed up to do this thing that I've never done before, and I have girl bossed too close to the sun. I feel bad but also I don't because of what the project is, and like it needed to happen. Like I had to buy yarn for that. I didn't have anything in my stash that would have worked. So if that's your thing, go check it out. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting. I need a thumbnail. It's gonna be probably the hexagons. If it's by my face, then it's like then you can kind of see it. Okay, hold on. I get it. That's probably good enough. It's probably still in there somewhere.